Norris takes pole from Verstappen, Sainz finds the wall, and there were lizards on the track. It's all happening in Singapore. Welcome back to On Track GP, and things are heating up nicely at the Marina Bay Street Circuit. We've got a rundown of how all three practice sessions played out, as well as our qualifying roundup. As always, if you're enjoying the video, do drop us a like and leave me a comment below. The first practice session at Marina Bay took place in daytime conditions, which were not representative of qualifying and race conditions. The track was initially dusty, making the first laps more challenging. It took until the second half of the session for competitive times to be set. Lando Norris initially set a fast time in the high 1:31s, but Charles Leclerc ultimately topped the session with a time of 1:31.763, showcasing what could be Ferrari's early pace. This time was over 1.5 seconds quicker than the fastest FP1 time from 2023. Norris finished second, just 0.076 seconds behind Leclerc, with Carlos Sainz in third for Ferrari. Max Verstappen came in fourth for Red Bull, 0.334 seconds behind Charles Leclerc, while Yuki Tsunoda surprised with a fifth place finish for VCARB. The session saw some driver complaints, with Sainz unhappy about his brake balance and Tsunoda expressing frustration with both his team's late instructions and being blocked by Lance Stroll on track. The second practice session took place under floodlights, providing more representative conditions for qualifying and the race. Lando Norris topped this session, narrowly beating Charles Leclerc by half a tenth of a second. Ferrari continued to show strong pace, with Leclerc and Carlos Sainz finishing second and third respectively. The next four drivers, Yuki Tsunoda, Oscar Piastri, Danny Ricciardo and George Russell, were separated by just 0.02 of a second. Top drivers struggled in this session, with Lewis Hamilton finishing 11th and Max Verstappen managing only 15th place. This did seem to indicate a potential setup challenge for both Mercedes and Red Bull. The session ended dramatically when George Russell hit the wall at turn 8. Fortunately, he was able to engage reverse gear and return to the pit lane, albeit without a front wing. This really did emphasise the unforgiving nature of the Marina Bay Street Circuit. Lando Norris dominated the final practice session, setting the fastest time on soft tyres and finishing nearly half a second ahead of his closest competitor George Russell. Oscar Piastri secured third place, making it a strong showcasing for McLaren, with both cars in the top three. Red Bull showed mixed results, with Max Verstappen finishing fourth while Sergio Perez failed to top 10. This suggested that Red Bull might still be fine-tuning their setup for the challenging Singapore track. The session was briefly interrupted by a lizard on the track, requiring a red flag and some creative problem-solving by the marshals. Once resumed, the initial running saw teams favouring medium tyres, with Red Bull briefly topping timesheets before Ferrari took over. The qualifying simulation runs on soft tyres towards the end of the session saw Norris shine, setting a time of 1:29.646. This performance put McLaren in a strong position heading into qualifying, while also highlighting potential challenges for some of the other top teams. Q1 began with Ferrari quickly taking to the track due to the tyre pressure issues in final practice. Charles Leclerc briefly held the top spot before Lando Norris overtook him with a 1:30.7. Carlos Sainz's session was complicated by an investigation for failing to follow track re-entry procedures after going off at turn 1. As the session progressed, track evolution played a significant role, with Alex Albon surprisingly topping the timesheets in his Williams. Several drivers, including Pierre Gasly, Valtteri Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, Franco Colapinto and Lance Stroll, found themselves in the elimination zone with just 3 minutes remaining. Lando Norris ultimately finished Q1 in first place, a tenth ahead of Max Verstappen. The session saw the elimination of Danny Ricciardo, Lance Stroll, Pierre Gasly, Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, with Ricciardo's early exit being particularly disappointing given RB's promising practice pace. Q2 began with Max Verstappen setting a blistering pace in the first two sectors, only to lose control in the final sector and have his lap time deleted for exceeding track limits at turn 19. This allowed Sergio Perez to briefly hold top spot before being surpassed by Nico Hülkenberg and then Lando Norris. The session saw frustration from Alex Albon, who expressed dissatisfaction with his car's tyre performance. Both Williams drivers, Albon and Colapinto, found themselves on the bubble and needing to improve their times to progress to Q3. Oscar Piastri ultimately set the fastest time of Q2 with a 1:29.640, followed by closely Max Verstappen. The session ended with the elimination of both Williams drivers along with Sergio Perez, K-Mag and Esteban Ocon, setting the stage for an intriguing final qualifying session. Q3 started with a mix of drivers on used and new soft tyres. Max Verstappen initially set the fastest time, but the session was quickly red flagged when Carlos Sainz crashed at the final corner. Sainz attributed the incident to a cold tyres or big snap and was noted by race control for crossing the track after the crash. Naughty Carlos. Verstappen's fastest lap was deleted for passing double-waved yellows at turn 18 despite his protest that he had lifted off the throttle. This deletion temporarily put Oscar Piastri in first place. The session resumed with just 4 minutes remaining, setting up a dramatic one-lap shootout for pole position. In the final moments, Lando Norris secured pole position with a lap time of 1:29.525, outpacing his teammate Piastri. Lewis Hamilton briefly held second place before being displaced by Verstappen. Charles Leclerc, who initially finished 5th, had his time deleted for exceeding track limits at turn 2, relegating him to 9th on the grid. Sainz, due to his earlier crash, will start from 10th place, completing a disappointing qualifying session for Ferrari. So, in summary, Lando Norris continued his impressive form from practice into qualifying, securing pole position with a rapid time of 1:29.525. This performance solidified McLaren's strong showing throughout the entire weekend, with Norris outpacing Max Verstappen by more than 0.2 of a second. Mercedes demonstrated their competitiveness with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell locking out the second row of the grid, qualifying 3rd and 4th respectively. Oscar Piastri, Norris's McLaren teammate and recent winner of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, managed a respectable 5th place. Nico Hülkenberg impressed by securing 6th place for Haas, outpacing Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin and underlying the unpredictable nature of the Singapore street circuit. The qualifying session was marked by several surprises and disappointments. Ferrari endured a particularly challenging session, with Carlos Sainz crashing in Q3 and Charles Leclerc having his fastest time deleted for exceeding track limits. This resulted in their 10th and 9th place starts. Red Bull also faced setbacks, with Sergio Perez underperforming and only managing 13th place, while Verstappen had to overcome a deleted lap time in Q2 to secure his front row position. Further down the grid, both Williams drivers outqualified Perez, showcasing the team's development and improved form. However, Danny Ric of RB could only manage 16th place, despite the team's promising pace in Friday practice. This disappointing result has fueled speculation about Ricciardo's future, with rumours suggesting he might be replaced by Red Bull reserve driver Liam Lawson for the upcoming United States Grand Prix. So, the championship protagonists will line up alongside each other for Sunday's main event. Hamilton's 3rd place is his best qualifying since he was 2nd on the grid at the British Grand Prix. Hamilton edged out Russell by just 0.026 seconds, while Piastri ended up 0.428 seconds slower than Norris. The Australian has promised to help Norris in his title fight with Verstappen if he can, but starting 3 places behind the Red Bull will make that difficult. Ferrari's poor pace, meanwhile, seemed to be caused by a struggle with tyres and getting the fronts and rears at the right temperature at the same time. Looking towards lights out, and all eyes are on Lando Norris. Can he break his pole start lap 1 curse? Lining up next to Max Verstappen doesn't make that an easy task by any means. Pole position for Norris was a contrast to qualifying in Azerbaijan last week, when he was 15th on the grid after a yellow flag warning ruined his lap, but recovered to finish 4th ahead of Max Verstappen. Verstappen, who said he was happy with the second after struggling for grip in practice in his Red Bull, leads Norris in the standings by 59 points. There are 7 rounds of the championship remaining, including Sunday's race. A front row start means Verstappen could limit the damage to his lead, even if Norris wins. Verstappen has never won in Singapore, which was the only track where the all-conquering Red Bull team didn't win last season. Hamilton has had his best qualifying session since Britain this season, which he went on to win. So in a season where the 7-time champion has struggled for single lap pace, this is a turn up for the books for Hamilton. So what do you think? Is Singapore Lando's to lose? Can Max take a first win in 8 races? Are the Mercedes going to spoil the party? And is Danny Ric's last weekend in Formula 1 upon us? As always, let me know what you think in the comments, and remember to like, comment, share and subscribe. Keep the pedal to the metal, and I'll see you at the checkered flag.